it'll usually give it a minute or so to let folks get
on
in there, to get in there like swimwear. So we will do the old rigmarole. How many people are on there? Any?
One, two.
One, two. Oh. Man, I was actually hoping to shoot some outdoors today, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Somebody said it's supposed to rain. I'm like,
right. Yeah, that's why I was in here.
Yeah.
What's up? Who's there? We'll let some more people gather. Who do we got in there?
Probably so far. I don't know names. It's not saying.
Okay. Let's
Hastings?
all right. What's up, Scott? What is crack-a-lacking? We will we'll give this a minute or so, let people kind of see the announcement on Facebook and see how many people we can get on for this one. This one's kind of impromptu, obviously. Transitioning over to outdoors, so going through the normal process for me, changing the blade, doing some other minute adjustments to prepare for outdoors. One of the things that obviously, if you saw my athlete page today, first thing I'll do is change out the blade, same launcher angle, and then I'll actually sight in at 20 with my outdoor arrows without changing anything else. So this particular setup needed me to raise the knocking point a little bit from where my big arrows were, which makes sense because the center of a big arrow to the bottom of the big arrow is going to be a different overall knocking point than than an X10. So right now the X10s are bare shaft tuned for the middle. How many people are on there?
We have 13.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. People can watch this later. It's whatever. So it's bare, and I'm shooting the orange one. I haven't messed around with the X3 buckskin one again yet, but it's bare shaft tuned for the middle, which is not where it's going to stay. I know a lot of people get a little bit confused. Steve Anderson posted a thing on Archery Talk saying he doesn't even bare shaft tune. Well, I guess it depends what your definition of bare shaft tuning is. I bare shaft tuned to start. That's just a good starting point. But once I go outside and I line tune, the bare shaft never stays where it was when I go outside. What I will do, which will be a live feed, probably when the weather clears up. Of course, I don't know if I can do a live feed because the internet at my house blows like FIDA World Archery blows. So I might just have to make a video about it and post it, but because it is an outside thing, you don't line tune at 20. So, once I'm done line tuning, I'll reshoot my bare shaft just for reference, and I'll go over all of that then. But the intent of this particular live feed was to talk about this little device here. Now, I've had this for long time. So this is the Ram arrow spine checker, and it's not technically a straightener because there is no way to straighten the arrows. Of course, with as many people shoot carbon today, there would be no reason for that. But what this does, and I've been using this for a very, very long time, is this allows me to check several things. Now, first of all, the Ram machine comes, what?
Oh, your brother Casey said people are staring at him in Windkill watching this.
Nice. Well, Casey, people stare at you anyway, bro. It's just how it goes. So, this machine comes with a big brass weight, and that weight hangs on the arrow to check spine. Now, I've already seen some stuff on the post from today, guys making roller adapters and all that. I don't use any of that shit. All I use the weight for is to check to make sure I don't have any mislabeled arrows. And I will just leave that story ending ... right there. It happens, trust me. So all I do is when I get my dozen arrows ready to roll, here's another factor about this particular machine. Stand by 1 second, I gotta get a tape measure. Tape measure. So one of the other things about this machine is because it is pretty much infinitely adjustable, with these rollers in the current position where they are, the widest that you can get it is 28 inches. Well, there's a reason why it's 28 inches. And that is this, is if you know, when everyone thinks about arrow stiffness, arrow straightness, for instance, the AMO standard is 28 inches. So if you get a 32-inch arrow from whatever company that you are buying your arrow from, and you put it on and you check the ends and they're not straight, it's 28 inches. And there is no definition or standard of where that 28 inches comes from. So if you have a 33-inch shaft or a 32-inch shaft from the factory, you got 2 inches on either end, that can be bunk. You can have 4 inches on one end that is just rubbish, as long as the other 28 inches are good. One of the other parts is these arrows that I'm going to be using today are a buddy of mine here in town, Travis Shinneman. These are Black Eagle X Impacts. These are the 400 spine, 1000th straightness. This is not, in the industry, these are not measured on a ram tool. These are measured with a laser down the middle of the shaft. So 1/1000th on this is going to be 2/1000ths on your ram because it's the circumference. So keep that in mind. One of the other things is for the people that use the weight in the middle, and basically, I don't even have the weight here, to be honest. That's how much we already did this, but basically what happens is you put the arrow in this configuration. Now, I couldn't really get it out to the widest 28 inches because Travis Shinneman's a hobbit. And so his draw length is, he's not shooting a 28-inch arrow. So right now, to put the weight on here and check this wouldn't give you an accurate readout because you're not at 28 inches. You're only at 26. So what I do is I will take the weight, and we already did this, I just forgot the weight at home because I'm stupid, is I will hang the weight on here and see where the spine goes to, and then I will loosen up this dial, and I will actually rotate this dial around to wherever the weight is calling for it and put that at 0 and then take the weight off. Then what I will do is I will go through every arrow and I will hang the weight just to make sure that it comes around to around 0. It can be 10 one way or 10 the other, I don't care. Number one, the weight is not the exact 1.879 or whatever it is anyway, because these rollers can't handle that much weight. So it's not going to be an exact spine measurement anyway, it's relative. And so all I do is I just put that on here to make sure that every one of these arrows, in this instance the Black Eagle X Impact 400s, I just make sure that every arrow is approximately a 400 spine. That's kind of important. I know people, I've ran into it myself, where I've had 300 spine arrows and half of them were 400s. That makes a difference. I'm not a spine Nazi. I don't care about a little bit here or there, but making sure that the arrows are properly labeled. And look, they're making hundreds and thousands of these. I don't hold it against any company that has a little boo-boo there. I could care less. It is what it is. It's the manufacturing process, and they're making so many of them, it doesn't bother me at all. But that's all I use the weight for. One other thing is with the weight on there, I don't roll the shaft. I don't roll the shaft with the weight on there to try to determine the heavy side of the spine, to determine if it's lumpy or any of that stuff. And the reason that I don't do that is, what does that tell me? It doesn't really tell me jack, because I still have to tune the knock and the bushing. I still have to shoot it. I'm still gonna have to knock tune it anyway. And when I knock tune it, that's gonna tell me where the arrow actually needs to be, regardless of where any heavy sides of the spine are gonna be. So it's kind of irrelevant for me. It's just a wasted step. And to be honest, rolling this is sensitive enough already that having the weight on there for me, it's just not something that I found to be a critical step. So basically what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start rolling some of these Black Eagle X impacts. Can you see that gauge right there? Zooming in's tough.
Yeah, it is. You just screwed me up.
All right, deal with it. How's that? Yeah. Is it still live?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
All right, we still there, everybody?
48, 49. Yep.
All right, okay, we're good. So basically, what I'm gonna show you right now is a couple things. Leave this right there, but can you see this roller right here? Okay, so when you're rolling on the arrow spine, you can't roll with your finger here, and you can't roll with your finger here. You absolutely have to put your fingers at the same time on the roller bearings and roll in a smooth motion. You can't roll here, can't roll here. You absolutely have to put both fingers on there and smoothly roll on the bearings. And I'll show you why. So we'll get this back into position here. Travis can get that right on the gauge. So right now, I will roll this on the bearings right now the way it should be. That's a damn straight arrow. But all it takes is one, like I'm just gonna barely you don't have to tap on this much whatsoever to get a huge amount of movement. So once again, I'll roll it on the bearings. Now I'll roll it off the bearings. And I'm trying to be as soft as I can, but you just can't. So on the bearings, off the bearings. So it's very, very easy to get a false reading. And so basically what I'll do is I will go through, I'll take this arrow off, we'll grab another. So this particular phase right here is stage 2 in my opinion. What I'll basically do is after I make sure all of the spines are within reason, so I'll go ahead and roll this. It's a straight ass arrow right there. Well, that's pretty straight. So these call for a 1/1000th straightness, and as you can see from the middle, I haven't even got the gauge to move yet. So this is the second step of building arrows for me anyway. Yeah, well, there's really no reason for me to keep doing that. Them some bitches are straight. So, go ahead and... So, once I get through part 2, right there, which is making sure that that the arrows are all straight. Step 1, make sure the relative spine is close. If these are a 400, I'll put the weight on there as long as they're within a 10, 20 thou either way. If I set the gauge at 0 and some come 8 thousandths over one way or 8 thousandths, 10 thousandths under the other, I don't care about that. So here's one of the super cool things about this machine is you can now reconfigure it to actually check the ends of the arrows. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull off this roller, and now I will not reinstall that roller until I get the gauge reinstalled for a couple reasons. Number one, reference previous Hobbit comment about Travis, his arrows aren't very long. So if I put this somewhere and it turns out that his arrows aren't long enough, which has happened, it doesn't happen to me, my arrows are plenty long. So basically I will now reinstall this down here. And then obviously to be able to properly check the ends of your arrows, you have to have both rollers on one side of the gauge. So I like to put the roller as close as I can to the gauge because that gives you the most stability, giving you the most accurate reading. Now, if you're doing this and if you have already fletched your arrows, you're going to need to put the gauge a little bit farther away from the roller because when you go to check your knock end, you're not going to be able to clear with veins. So basically what I have now is I have that configuration right there. So what this configuration is going to allow me to do is this is going to allow me to check the ends of my arrows. And so, well, generally speaking, if there is, and you will notice on some of these arrows of Travis's, these Black Eagle X impacts, some of the labels are on the knock end, some of the labels are on the point end. I was doing that at Gold Tip when I shot them for 12 years. It's just, you just want to pick the straightest part of the arrow. And the key part there is, if you're going to have to compromise on an end for straightness, you always want the knock in the straightest end because that's the propelled end. So if there's any variance whatsoever, you want it on the knock end. So in this configuration right here, the first thing that I will do is I will actually check the arrow on the knock end. Now, as you can see, Travis has already went through some of this process to determine where the straightest part of the arrow is. So Travis has cut some off each end and found the best, what is this, about 27 and a half?
About 27 and a half.
So he's found the best 27 and a half inches out of these arrows that you're going to get. And so basically what we'll do is we'll come down to the knock end. Once again, fingers, they can see the rollers, right?
Yes.
So once again, fingers on the rollers. You got a little bit of movement there. Getting less and less. Okay, so now this will be a shaft, and I picked out this shaft particularly for this. This is one of those shafts where there's just a little bit of run out on the end of the shaft, but not bad. But what you can do is you can see there's about half of that movement in the pin itself. So we're getting 1.5 thou of movement on the pin knock, or on the pin. That's totally acceptable. This is the worst one that he had, which is not going to be a problem at all. I will also do the same thing on the point end. About the same. The point on this one's actually even better. Once again, don't roll out here. You will get a lot of movement. So grab another one of these bad boys. And I will actually go through and determine, well, that one's good. I will actually go through and determine, so this one, we're gonna have to heat up and straighten the, bushing on this one here. Let me grab a lighter real quick. So this is the exact process. Now, for a lot of folks, they you know, I don't like to ruin arrows because it takes me a good bit of time to actually build a dozen arrows going through this process. So heated that up. I got big enough pliers, right? Then I'll just rotate that bushing a little bit. Getting there. There we go. So, as you can see, starting off this arrow, well, the arrow was better than the component arrow combination. And that's one thing, is you can have a couple thou run out in the shaft, but if you have a bushing or a pin knock adapter that has run out in it as well, you could make the problem worse. And that's exactly what we just saw right here, is this pin knock adapter had a lot of run out on it. It had a pretty good wobble to it. I probably rotated it, you know, probably a quarter of a turn total. And as you can see now, there's none. So that is part of the building process to help determine what's going to be the best for you, period. We'll turn this over, check this point. Just remember, when you're doing it on the point, it's awful hard because, like, I can see he's got dried glue and shit all over this point. So that's kind of tough, but it's hard to do the points if you have any residue or anything on them. There we go. So coming down to the end where it's clean, without moving it anyway. Yeah, we're not getting a whole lot of movement there at all, but it slopes, so it's kind of hard to, there we go. So going through every single arrow like this on both ends, and I will heat up and re-straighten every component as needed. There's a good knock one right there. Nice job, Travis. So this is obviously what we're looking for, not very much movement whatsoever. But as we go through this point needs a little bit of movement there, Trav. So what we'll do, I don't know if this lighter will be enough on the point, but we will basically heat up and rotate every component as we can to match up, you know, any variances in any component and the shaft. And very, very rarely do I see, that's not enough heat. Very rarely do I see a component that cannot be heated and rotated and find the sweet spot. We got any questions at all?
When are you going to do the video on line tuning?
As soon as the weather clears up.
And then we had a request to put this on YouTube.
It will be on YouTube, yes. See if this.
Can you do it with the arrows fletched?
Yes. Yes, you can do it with the arrows fletched. You just have to set up the machine a little bit farther away. You just have to set up the machine a little bit farther away from the roller right here so that you get clearance, but absolutely.
Can you tell us more about knock tuning?
Yes, we will actually get to knock tuning here as soon as I get this one's. I don't think I had enough heat to warm that bitch up. There we go. So basically going through every single one of these components right here is going to be a major benefit. Like this knock here has about, this pin knock adapter has a good 5-6 thou run out in it. So I'll just take the lighter, heat this up, and this process that you're seeing me going through right here, this is literally how I build every single arrow I do. It takes a long time. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I love to build arrows, because to be honest with you, I kind of fucking hate it. But, so now we're about 1.5. But this is the process that will make you have the best, so there you go. So I rotated this bushing less than half a turn, and it went from 5-6 thou down to less than 1. So that's the process that you're going to be going through every single time. Now, I also do this when my arrows are fletched. I will just move this gauge down one more slot so that I have more room for my vanes to spin. But I will still do this process. I'll actually, when I blow up the back of an arrow or have to replace a pin knock bushing, if I'm at home, I will actually make sure that bushing is spinning true in this machine before I put a knockback on it and get back to work. So that is basically that's basically what the Ram machine is capable of doing. This particular tool, like I posted today, is by far my best tool when it comes to building arrows. I also have a hooter shooter, which is absolutely amazing. There are a couple things that I do when building arrows that covers about 75 to 80% of what the hooter shooter can do. However, that last 20%, there's nothing that substitutes for a hooter shooter. But this process here, making sure that every component you have is super critical in determining that. So go ahead and back that up, and let's talk about knock tuning here right quick. Any questions on the Ram machine right now? Whether it be points, you guys saw that you can straighten those pin knock adapters, get those things rolling. It's just a matter of heating them up and rotate them until they spin true. One thing you will find is if you have a pin knock adapter that you can't get to spin true in a particular shaft, don't throw it away. It's probably going to work in another shaft. It's just one of those things. I don't know why, but that's just basically what it does.
Knock bushing versus pin knock. Which one's better?
Well, it depends on what style of shaft. On this particular shaft, Travis is not going to have a choice. The pin knock bushing does do one thing that a unibushing or other bushings don't, and that's protect you from a Robin Hood. I don't like to break arrows because it takes me a long time, like 2 days, because I'm not patient enough to do it all in one. I want to kill myself. So it takes me 2 days to build a dozen arrows properly. So I don't want to Robin Hood anything. Indoors, doesn't really matter, but the pin knock adapter does protect the back of the arrow from Robin Hoods. There is, look, I don't care what company it is, the more components you put in between the arrow and your string, the more difficult it is to get them tuned to the highest level. It's just a fact, because you have a round shaft, a round component that goes inside of it, then you have a round shank sticking out, and then you have a round hole. So there's a whole bunch of round things that don't always match up. So it is more difficult to do. Yes, just sticking, whether it be a G-knock in the back of the ACEs or the 246 knocks that go in the back of a lot of the gold tips and stuff. Easton has similar knocks. Those are great knocks, absolutely fantastic. However, I don't care what manufacturer it is, if you're just using a knock straight in the back of your arrow, the arrow companies thank you, because you're going to be breaking some stuff. It's just what it is. Those really do not protect the back of the arrow as near as much as a bushing like this. I'm a fan of a little bit more knock, so if I could, yeah, I would probably run a bigger knock on the back of here, but you know, the regular pin knock is set every outdoor world record there is, so I can't really complain about them. It's just a matter of, you know, understanding the tunability of all of them. I mean, you can, Jesse Broadwater, everybody, you can take a component set up like this and get it to absolutely hit the same hole. It just takes a little bit more work. Conversely, part of that work is when you do blow up a knock, sometimes it's sketchy just throwing a new knock back on there and shooting that arrow again. It may hit the dot, but whether it hits the middle of the middle like the rest of them remains to be seen. And that's where knock tuning comes into play. And so basically knock tuning is once you, well, let me stop. Before I even knock tune for that, I will actually knock tune bear shafts. So what Travis is going to end up doing, now he did all this process yesterday, but as you can see from me going through here, he needs to go through these again, because there's, just in those 5 I checked, the arrows are straight as you can be, but he has some components that are not quite trued, tuned properly, rotated and everything. So Travis is going to have to go through these again. But once he does that, we will install his nocks on every arrow. He will determine if he's going to shoot the little notch in or out. Doesn't really matter. And then he will shoot. I will have him shoot every bear shaft through paper and rotate the nocks until they tear the same. And that's super critical, and that comes back to the rotating on the ram arrow spine checker with the weight on there, and you know, to see if there's any lumpy spots. So same idea, only this time it's got some going. My OCD is taking over here, folks. I got a little chode. I don't want to go down into the roller. So that will help, you know, determine what needs to happen there. So it's not a matter, and now this is pre-super tuned. So it doesn't matter what the bear shaft tear is at this point. Obviously you don't want a high left tear like this, but get it relatively close. And we'll shoot every bear shaft through paper and rotate the nocks until every bear shaft tears the same. I don't care if it's a bullet hole. I don't care if it's high left, low right. I don't care. Until every bear shaft tears the same. Then we'll go back and fletch them, and then the vast majority of the time, you're not going to have to rotate that knock. I mean, you'll have to rotate it to index it, but not very much tuning will be required after that. So if you're fletching with 3 fletches, your knock tune is going to have 3 impact points. Now this is something that I learned way back in the day from Cabe Johnson over at Spot Hog when I saw his OCD notebook. And it was, he had a notebook with every arrow plotted. And that was the first time I ever, geez, how long ago was that? It was a long time. Anyway, basically, if you have 3 vanes, you're going to have 3 impact points. So if you have this arrow hitting in the middle, like this is out of a hooter shooter middle, and you rotate the knock 1 index, it's actually going to move that arrow, and you're generally going to end up with 3 impact points. And it'll usually be some shape of a triangle with one of those being in the middle. So what is that doing? That's basically tuning the knock itself, the plastic part that is taking all the force with the round shank. Now I know it fits on there good, but once again, these are being propelled with a tremendous amount of energy. So every 1,000th of run out is going to affect something. And so guys like Tim Gillingham, Cabe Johnson, Jesse Broadwater, all of these guys, this is stuff that's just done just to build the best bullet you can. I mean, if you look at, you know, Rob Furlong and, you know, all these guys that are, you know, in the military making these 2,000, 2,500 yard shots, they're not buying their ammo at Walmart. And they're not buying their ammo from a store, period. They are sitting down and they are meticulously building every single one of those bullets. And that's what Tim does, and that's what Jesse does. And I mean, I do it. And it's just something, it's just that ingrained confidence of knowing that the bullets that I'm shooting are not gonna, they're better than me. They're way better than me. So, so when you're shooting a completed shaft, if you have that arrow that just doesn't feel like if the shot breaks perfect and you're like, man, that barely caught the dot, but that was a great shot, and you rotate the nock one, if you're shooting 3 vanes, and if you rotate it 1 index, it's probably going to bring that arrow into the middle. Very, very rarely is there a situation, unless there's some damage, where you can't bring that arrow back into the middle. And that's why it's so difficult. Like if you see Jesse Broadwater or some of these guys in Reading, when they blow up a nock, usually they'll replace that nock and it'll go to the back of the bus. And the reason for that is they understand that that new nock has not been tuned to that arrow per se. Now, if they need it, they'll shoot it at a shorter distance target, and it'll probably hit the dot. Whether it hits the middle of the middle is another thing. And then when that day's over, they'll go to the practice range, grab that arrow and shoot it at a longer distance and do any rotating that might need to be done. And so whenever you break a nock, of course you have to replace it, totally get that. But just understand that there's a lot of situations where when you replace that nock, it might not be as accurate of an arrow as it was previously. Any other questions?
Thoughts on knock collars?
I mean, if the knock collar is properly made and fits properly, I am all about them. Arrow shafts are expensive these days. I don't care which one you're buying. If you're buying a high quality shaft, the more you can protect it, the better. However, with that being said, I have seen lots of situations where, you know, look, it's hard to keep the OD of these shafts to a tight enough tolerance where a collar is going to actually fit properly. It can be done, and there's several companies out there doing it, and props to them, I love it. But if that's going to be a system that you run, just make sure that you get extra collars so that you can fit them properly to the shaft, because you know, any wobble in that is going to create you know, issues, accuracy issues. I don't care what it is. So you don't want to have to pound it on with a hammer, but it does need to be a fairly snug fit so that you don't have to worry about that component resulting in a concentricity issue. So I'm a fan of them. I don't happen to currently be shooting an arrow that has that feature, but if you are, just be mindful that that's just one more component that has to be tuned to the overall system itself.
How do you guys prep your AAE vanes?
I prep my vanes. I just use, it depends which vane. If you're using the PM, the max material vanes, obviously you want to use the AAE primer pen. Travis is going to get my goods right now. So basically, what I will do is I'll take out the vane. I'll use the Max Weld primer pen, and I grabbed it just because I have done I mean, for me, this is for me. It's not for everybody. Just GP. But I have tested the crap out of helical on vanes. I've went from none to 1 to 2 to 3 to as much as I could wrap on there. And for me, with my arrows and my setup, or I just suck, I don't know, but the more helical I run, the bigger my groups get. I don't know, I have no idea. I've fletched up, you know, starting back in 2003, I fletched, Lucy's getting excited over here. I fletched up, you know, a dozen gold tip ultralight 300s back in the day. And I literally did 3 arrows in one helical, 3 arrows in another for a whole dozen, mixed them all up, and then I just, you know, powder tested them all, of course, and then just stood there at 100 yards and shot for hours and hours and hours for an entire weekend. And it became pretty obvious to me which one was most forgiving and which one grouped the best. And for me, it's just never been a lot of helical. So believe it or not, the jig that I actually use, not for hunting and not for indoors, so don't get it twisted, just for my outdoor arrows. I actually use the little inexpensive AAE Fletch 3. This is what I use. Light as a feather, pops apart, I can take it with me everywhere I go. And this is a true engineered 1 degree. That's it, it's 1 degree. Right hand only, that's all there is, 1 degree. But because these are made, because these are injection molded, you can be like Lee Lakosky and get 12. And guess what? Every single one of them is the exact same every single time. So this is the jig that I use for my outdoor arrows. I actually bring it with me everywhere I go. And it's super simple, works very, very well. Shoots the best for me, about 1 degree. So what I will do is I will basically take, I'll just get this out here just for fun, but I will basically put the arrow in here. I'll take my primer pen. What I will not do, just because of my own issue of OCD, is I don't primer 100 veins to do. I do them one at a time. That way I know that my adhesion's gonna be maximized every single time. So I'll get that set. I will position it where it needs to be. I'll apply my glue. I'm not gonna mess up one of Travis's arrows right now, but I'll apply the glue. Slap this bad boy in here. Blam, that's it. And with this configuration, with the Maxwell pen and using this jig, fletching arrows is super, super quick. Now I have a bunch of these jigs, but I just can't do 5, 6 arrows at a time. It's just not in me. By the time I get to the 3rd arrow, I am so stressed out about the 1st arrow. Yeah, it's just me. So basically that's the method that I use. I don't have any adhesion problems at all with my veins. Now, if you are shooting the AAE EP veins, those do not require any primer pen whatsoever. Those are basically a lick and stick. If you've seen the new AAE hybrid vein, which is available through dealers only, that is actually a max mold or extrusion made out of the EP material. So it's EP material, but it's thicker, has the ridges, and it does not require the primer pen. So the weight is in between both, and the cost is in between both. Great option for, you know, especially for archery shops that want a tougher, more rugged vein that's not as expensive as the max material, but also is super easy to fletch. So once Travis goes back through these and gets these all dialed, he'll get his nocks put on, he'll shoot every bear shaft through paper, and then he will fletch up all of his arrows. Once he fletches up all of his arrows, he will come back, powder test, because you want to make sure you minimize contact. I have contact. Most people that shoot a lizard tongue have a little bit of a tick in the back. That doesn't affect anything. He will powder test it. Once that's done, he'll index all of them, and then he'll shoot all of the arrows through paper again. Once that's done, then he can kind of actually start the tuning process. Bear shaft tune. I'm a fan of bear shaft tuning at about 20, 25 yards, just for relative tune, and then we will step out and start line tuning. Obviously, line tuning is going to be something that I'll show you guys once the weather here breaks, but that will be at your maximum comfortable distance for aiming. Line tuning is not at a circle, so I do line tuning at 100 yards. Travis sometimes is more comfortable in the 70 to 80 yard range, but you line tune at your maximum comfortable distance. So we will obviously be going over that at a later date. So
a lot of comments asking if acetone will work in place of the primer pen.
No, acetone leaves a residue. So if you're going to use residue, or if you're going to use acetone, you then have to clean it with water, fresh, not tap water. You have to use clean water to clean off after the acetone, because the acetone does leave a residue. Keep in mind, that's for the max line vanes only. The EPs, the other material does not require a primer pen. So obviously these do have acetone in them. This primer pen has acetone in it, but it also has other agents in there that are quick drying, do not leave a residue, and are actually specifically designed to soften up the urethane. The acetone will soften up the urethane a little bit, but it cures almost instantly, and it does leave that residue. So pretty, I would just use the primer pen if it were me.
What glue did we use on the points and pins?
On the points, Easton Hot Melt. This is the greatest material ever created in the history of mankind, in my opinion, besides depleted uranium. This Easton Hot Melt is extremely sticky, tacky. I use this for all of my points and all of my pin knock bushings as well. Now, obviously for the points, I use a pretty good amount of it. I've never lost a point using this glue, but I can spin tune and I can replace points with this. So I do not use this is actually Max Bond, by the way. I swear to God, if I squirt this into my lube tube, I'm gonna kill myself. But I use just a little bit on my pin knock adapters so that I can replace them with a lighter. On the points, as you saw with his, it's lighter. The lighter has to put in a little bit of work to be able to soften it up enough for the point. But I love this glue. It is this comes in the if you buy X10s, you get a little tiny stick of it, or you can go on their website, or you could actually call Steve Anderson. Hold on here. Let me give you his cell phone. Oh, we're using my phone for this. Steve got lucky. But anyway, Easton makes this in a big and a small stick. It's the greatest stuff ever.
Can you explain line tuning a little bit more?
I can explain line tuning, but I will actually be making a video about it, going in depth with pictures, cause and effect, the whole 9 yards. As soon as the weather breaks. I don't really want to go into it It's really not even all that difficult. It's just something that I started doing a decade ago, and I just found it to and not every tune is the same. So I can't take, like I have that buckskin Prevail. When I go outside and line tune it, I can't just emulate what the orange bow did. It's never the same. It'll be close, but from bow to bow, person to person, the line tune does change. But I don't want to go into a lot about line tuning right now, because every single thing I say about it's just going to raise more questions. So once I get that video done, if I can find somewhere outside that has good enough Wi-Fi or cell signal, which my house does not, I'll do a live feed about it. If not, it'll probably just be I'll probably just throw together a video and edit it together with some pictures and stuff to kind of show you guys the progression. One thing about line tuning for me is I don't walk back tune. None of that. I don't do any of that crap. Once my bow is line tuned, my center shot is perfect. As long as my sight's leveled, I hit from 2 to 120 yards with no problem. That sounded kind of arrogant. When I make a good shot, I hit. My point was, once I'm done line tuning, my bow is shooting better than I'm capable of myself.
When you shoot through paper, how far do you stand back from the paper?
I don't really shoot through paper hardly ever, but when I do, I shoot through paper at 7 yards because that's where your arrow flight is the worst. Shooting through paper at point blank range doesn't really tell you squat, in my opinion. So when I do shoot through paper, I shoot through paper at 7 yards because that is where arrow flight is the worst. Shooting through paper at 20, shooting through paper at 2, okay, that's fine. But the worst tear you're going to get is going to be at 7.
What cleaning process do you use to glue in the points?
I don't worry about it. When I cut the arrow, I don't have it down here, but I do use the G5 ASD tool to true up the ends, and then I'll basically just tap out any excess carbon. I don't take a Q-tip with acetone, or I don't do any of that. I just tap out any excess carbon out of there and let the old Easton hot melt eat.
I don't see any more questions.
Okay, so that's kind of the basic long and short, more the short side. I strongly encourage you guys, I'm a huge fan, and obviously we need to support our local pro shops. I go down to Mile High Archery here in Prescott Valley and buy stuff from Dave Stepp whenever I need it. So I encourage everyone to support your local pro shop, but I also am a huge proponent of archers knowing their own equipment and being able to work on their own equipment. So if you're one of those guys, and if you're on this live feed, if you're one of the guys that follows my stuff, you are probably a little bit more advanced than your beginner. So I would encourage you to go down and get the Ram Arrow Spine Checker. It absolutely is an amazing tool. It has saved my ass when I had some mislabeled arrows. It helps you diagnose any bad arrows. If you see me at an event outdoors and you look into my quiver and you see, I name my arrows. I don't number my arrows. So if you see an arrow named Barack Obama, that arrow's no good. That's not a good arrow. If you see, so if you see any names like that in there, those arrows are not good. And generally this Ram machine was what, let me know from the get-go. So when you're building arrows, going through this process, it'll help you identify any bad arrows. And so I'll either name them something or someone I don't like, or I will put a blue streak through the logo to remind me, if you're stepping up and ready to shoot, a long target or an important target and you need to grab a new arrow, don't grab Obama. Just throwing that out there. But as far as fletching goes, I'll clean the back of the shaft with my AAE Max Wipes, and then prep my arrows with the Maxwell primer pen, and I'll just blow through them. But prior to that, I have went through this process with every single arrow, meticulously making sure every point and every bushing spins as good as I can get it. For every dozen arrows that I make sure that I have points are generally not as much of an issue. Pin knock adapters, I will make sure that I have a couple dozen there, not because they're bad, but sometimes a certain component just doesn't jive with a certain shaft. So I will actually have more pin knock adapters on hand to where if I rotate around and I can't get one to work, I'll pull it out, set it aside, try another one, and then on the next shaft, I'll go back to that component that didn't work the previous one, and it'll usually work fine. Other than that, man, that's pretty much it as far as the Ram Arrow Spine Checker goes. Hopefully I answered some of your questions, gave you guys some good information, and this you will seriously see a benefit. What's up?
Aaron wants to know if he can shoot your arrows in Arizona.
Aaron who?
Christmas.
Aaron Christmas, can you shoot my arrows in? Does he mean at the Arizona Cup?
I think so.
Absolutely, buddy. You can shoot my arrows at the Arizona Cup, no problem. Meet me at the AAE booth and just tell him that you're waiting for Greg to deliver his arrows. And then on Monday, when I get back from the ASA event, that's happening at the exact same time, I'll come on over there and deliver them to you. I'm not going to be at the Arizona Cup, obviously. So unfortunately, that would not be an option. I did have enough to where I would let you try them, of course. But seriously, folks, you will see an improvement in groups. You will see an improvement in score. If this is a pretty intense process. Travis, the guy who's running my camera for me right now, my little buddy over there, he sat here in the office yesterday for hours and didn't even get through all of them. And he was like, how in the hell do you do it? And I told him, I just do it once. It's like pulling off that Band-Aid. You don't mess around, you just sit down. This is your purgatory and you just get it done. But obviously Travis is going to have to go back through some of these. But this will seriously help your scores, and this will seriously help your archery doing this. That's it?
That's all I'm seeing looking back through the comments.
All right. Any more questions before we roll out, folks?
When will we be getting another podcast?
Tuesday. I was, this is not your Gritty Bowman tech tip, but I was pulling chunks of gravel out of my butt because I gravel tuned to my ass after last weekend. I was absolutely wore out. My butt was dragging when I got home, and so I took last Tuesday off, but this upcoming Tuesday is going to be a new podcast with Jake Kaminsky. I absolutely have to get Jake on the podcast and talk about this new book. I've been a fan of Jake's for a long time. Jake absolutely is dedicated to his craft. I work out and I get tons of questions about how do I work out and shoot archery. And Jake has pretty much answered every one of those questions in his new book. So I'm going to be having Jake on the podcast. I might do 2 podcasts next week. I also want to talk to Aaron Snyder from Kafaru. If you've been watching the Gritty Bowman and Aaron Snyder from Kafaru, they absolutely have it going on over there. They are meeting up and backpacking. There was 68 people that showed up to backpack with them today. Just getting ready for shed hunting, getting ready for hunting, just getting in shape for the upcoming hunting season. So I want to talk to Aaron Snyder about prep, physical preparation for hunting as well. So yes, there's going to be a podcast this week, and there might actually be 2.
Will this be available on the site for replay?
Yes, this will be on my Facebook page. I'll share it to my personal page, and I will also upload it to my YouTube.
Any point material have more flaws than others?
Point material?
Yes.
I prefer a hardened type material. I have used standard stainless points, and I bend them like for free. Literally. I mean, I've bent tungsten points too, so don't get me wrong. If you hit something in a target, it's probably going to bend. But for me, I prefer a tungsten type material over. There is some tool steel out there that is extremely hard as well. It's a pretty high Rockwell, but in my opinion, the tool steel points are a little bit brittle. They might not bend as easy, but they will snap off if so it's kind of just a matter of mitigating what your expectations are. But no matter what, do not shoot a soft point, period.
What's a good small diameter arrow for outdoors if I cannot afford an X10 Pro Tour?
If you can't afford the so first of all, if you're ruling out the X10s, that means that you're probably ruling out the Carbon Express Nanos, which is no disrespect to the Nanos or the X10s. If that's not in your budget, dude, that's awesome. Know your role. It's no problem. For me, when I start looking at those, there are some new arrow companies coming into the market, but if you're looking for an outdoor feed arrow that's going to have tight tolerances, not going to break the bank, these Black Eagle X Impacts, I've never shot them. Disclaimer, full disclosure, I've never shot the X Impact, but Danny McCarthy and those guys have done a great job so far, and from the few dozen that I've helped Travis build, and my experience with all carbon arrows, I'm pretty impressed. For an all carbon small outdoor arrow, I'm pretty impressed with these X Impacts. So, how much were these a dozen, Travis?
174 for shafts.
174 for shafts. That's not bad, dude. I mean, people are charging that for hunting arrows. So, $175 for a dozen shafts, plus however much the points and components are. I've been pretty impressed with the tolerances, the way that the straightness has turned out. The component fit was good as well. So if you're not going for a Carbon Express Nano or an X10 level shaft, and you still want the small diameter stuff, these look to be pretty good.
What Eastons do you recommend to those who can't afford Pro Tours?
What Eastons do I recommend? If you're looking to get into the feed game and wind is going to be a factor, you might need to save up, because going to a standard 246 size shaft, I shot those for 12 years. So, they will move more in the wind. So there are some smaller offerings from Easton. You might even look at, depending on your bow weight, you might even look at some of the smaller hunting carbon shafts for a tournament arrow. But if you're going to be looking for, for that high end, smaller outdoor arrow, if the outdoors is going to be what you're doing in the wind, I would strongly encourage you to save up and buy right. That way you can buy once. You will not regret that.
Have you ever cut from the back end of a Pro Tour after cutting the max amount from the front?
I actually don't shoot the Pro Tours. When I shot the Pro Tours several years ago, and cut from every which way you could imagine and had great success. I had no problem with that. The one thing to keep in mind is that the Pro Tour basically is the regular X10 with the back already cut off of it. So that's going to be neither here nor there. I'm currently shooting the Easton X10 325s, the regular X10s, cutting, I don't know, what do we cut off the back, 4 inches or something off the back, which basically creates a stiffer Pro Tour, for lack of a better term. I'm shooting mine 30 inches, currently testing the 140s versus 120s. Indoors, they both tuned up fine. They both bare shafted fine. I shot them through paper just for fun, and they tore the exact same. So 120s to 140s in my arrows didn't even change my paper tear or my bare shaft tune. So I don't know what to tell you there. I'm going to be looking for variances in consistency of grouping, forgiveness, stuff like that at longer distances. So that's what's really going to determine the winner for me. So yeah.
Will you be at USAT Nationals?
I will not be at USAT Nationals, no. I'm going to be attending all the ASAs. I'll be attending, obviously, it was at Vegas Indoor Nationals, Dakota Classic, Reading Outdoor Nationals. Oh, snap, I need to call Levi Morgan. We'll probably be attending the OPA. I don't think I'll be shooting the OPA. I think I'll be bow junkying up the OPA. So other than that, no, I have no plans to attend. Usually I attend SoCal and the Arizona Cup because AAE was title sponsor of both of those events, and I had nothing else going on anyway. Now, covering the ASAs and stuff, I don't think I'll be making any USA archery events.
Did you ever try Victory VAP shafts?
I have not. I have not tried. I've not tried the Victories at all. I know that Steve's making some progress over there with the Victory line. I do look for Victory to become more prevalent on the scene. They've they've continued to do some work over there. So I've not shot the Victory VAPs, but so I really have no input, good or bad. But I do like Steve over there, and they definitely seem to be headed in the right direction.
What about residual bend in the arrow?
If you're talking about an X10, they bend because they got aluminum in them. And when they bend, and that arrow's done. You can try to straighten it if you want, but don't. I've never really had any luck with that. When it comes to a shaft like this, most of these type shafts now are a pre-preg. Easy, Travis. Don't freak out. These are a pre-preg arrow. So whether it's your gold tips, whether it's your Black Eagles, your Victories, a lot of those are pre-preg arrows, and you can, basically you can bend those to high heaven. And straightness retention is important in a pre-preg. That's why it's become so popular. Most of your best golf clubs, most of your best fly fishing poles are made from a pre-preg process because they can take a tremendous amount of bend and go back to being straight.
Casey says, do you even lift, bro?
Nah, bro. Nope.
Back to residual bend. Residual bend when using the spine tester. Residual bend will give a false reading on spine.
Well, I'm not sure what that means when you say residual bend will give a false reading on the spine. As far as this machine goes, what can give a false reading on the spine is, number one, not having the proper amount of weight. Which when I got this, the weight that came with the Ram Aerospine Checker wasn't the AMO standard weight, so it wasn't a true spine reading anyway. The other is if your arrow is not spanned at 28 inches, it's not going to give you an accurate reading. This machine goes to 28 inches. Travis Schuneman, my little buddy here running the camera, his arrows aren't 28 inches long. So it's just all relative. I do not. You can. I'm not hating on you for it, but I don't really care, what the spine reads on this Ram machine. What this Ram machine allows me to do is verify that every arrow is the same spine.
When you yoke a right tear, do you twist the right or left yoke? I think he means when you're yoke tuning and you shoot it.
Yes.
Right tear.
Follow the knock.
Follow the knock.
So if you have a knock right yoke.
You gonna do a video on stabilizers?
Yes, I will be doing I will be doing a stabilizer question and answer live feed as well. Kind of like the question I put on my personal Facebook the other day about FET, federal excise tax. It seems like since the original bee stinger days, it seems like everybody that can go on Alibaba.com and buy carbon tubes is a stabilizer manufacturer now, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We have some great companies, great stabilizer companies out there. If you're paying your FET tax, come on, welcome to it. But actually knowing what's going on with stabilization is a whole nother matter. So yes, I will be doing a stabilizer live feed as well.
OPA rules say 2312 is a size limit. Does this mean 9.3s are illegal?
9.3 would be legal. 9.3 would be legal. Now, there is a caveat to that, and I don't think Levi's going to be all World Archery about it, but in World Archery, you can't even have an arrow wrap on the legally max arrow, because then they say that in case you go all the way to the veins, that your wrap could now. I don't think Levi's going to be that hardcore about it, but
Back to the residual bend. If the arrow has a bend in it, will it show a high and low on the spine tester?
That arrow should be in the trash, so there would really be no reason for you to be measuring spine on a bad arrow. But I suppose in theory, yes. That's it.
Questions.
All right.
Casey says he has a carbon wheelbarrow made out of stabilizers. Other than that,
well, then you're a stabilizer expert, Casey. Congratulations. So, all right, everybody. appreciate your time, appreciate you tuning in, and stay tuned for more stuff as we transition to the outdoor game. We will be doing some more outdoor arrow, bow, everything shenanigans as well. So thanks everybody.